Hello. Good to see you. It's good to be out here. You can hear the birds, which I enjoy. It's lovely to walk out my door and hear that. And let me just show you the garden, because I always rabbit on a bit out here before I go inside and talk about the things, because there's always something happening out here. That is not our car. We're looking after somebody's place and we're using their car to do it. But what we've got here are some lilies that are coming out. Dun, da, da. And you can see that we had a very, very, intense storm of hail yesterday. It was only 5 or 10 minutes, but it totally shredded things. I mean, we were actually very lucky here. These haven't come out yet, but you can see all the lilies are gearing up for their big show. And there's more all coming up, but this lot are completely out. So let me just get up close, and you can see that they've all been a bit mushed, but they survived because lilies are tough. And look, isn't it nice with the purple behind it? And we've still got roses. Everything is a little bit battered because, the weather was very violent. It was only about 5 or 10 minutes, but I looked out the window and the sky was truly leaden. Look at this, look at the orchid leaves. I just love these. The sky was like so dark, and here's I see I've weeded in here, and you can see I've got to weed some more, and I need to tidy up. But this wonderful thing, hi Wendy, it's a wonderful new tree that I've planted. It's only got a few flowers left on it now, and see there's a foxglove there, which I'm going to have to make sure it doesn't run to seed. So it's the time when the flowers are starting to finish. But look at the rose. Now that I've pruned away the cineraria, the rose is like, oh, hello, I can see the light. So everything's a little bit tatty because it's the time of year when everything's happening, but it all needs maintaining. And I'm a bit behind still. Look at this. This is the white meadow rue. And it's starting to, it's making buds. It'll be lovely. And see, this I transplanted in here, which is why there's a big hole in the ground cover. And look, it's just exploding with new leaves. So that's exciting. It's even making flowers. It's not wasting any time. Look at that. They'll be bright red and dangling quite soon. And the neighbour's apple tree has already got little apples growing on it. So, and their hydrangeas are. And look, over there you can see that the big rose that's on the garage, on their garage, is flowering. I actually made a big decision, and all of the plant that you can see there is going to come down after it's flowered because it's becoming too difficult to maintain. So I have to make it sustainable, and so it's going to be a smaller thing, which will be very big because it's a big rose, so I'll constantly be pruning it. Look at this. This is a battered compassion rose flower, but it smells so good. This rose has a beautiful scent. So what have we got here? We've got a fuchsia that I struck from a cutting, which is about to come out. And an iris that I really hope will flower. I haven't seen this flower for decades, practically. The luculia's got its red leaves coming out. And just look at the cherry. I love this. Just watching the leaves move in the breeze. I've always loved that. So this is the front garden. Oh, and before I go inside, I'm just going to walk across all of this and show you. See the bulbs. This is the bulb garden. There's more lilies here. It's going to explode soon. And see these big, tall Christmas lilies. They're big and tall. So yeah, they're coming out. The most amazing electric blue lobelia here, really dark. And look, the calendula is out. It's so bright. So yeah, this is a place of bright contrasts, and you might remember that last week I said there was a spiral of blue flowers, and there it is. You can really see it. So that's coming out, and in the middle of all of that there is a short little lily. I don't even remember what colour it is, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. So that is the world outside, and now let's go inside and I'll tell you what's going on with God of me. And what I managed to write this morning, and the massive detour I took while I was writing this morning, because it's pretty easy to go down a rabbit hole and then you think, oh my god, this just is getting too complicated and I'm out of what I understand and really know and can explain. So I didn't, I went on a detour. So now I'm inside. It's quite cold outside today. That storm that came over yesterday was the beginning of a southerly airstream, and the southerly is cold in New Zealand and in Wellington. So yeah, now I'm inside, and it's warmer because the house is nicely insulated. Okay. So what did I do? What did I do this morning? Last week, you may recall that I wrote about the brains in our cells and how, our cells have brains, and the cell, it's got a membrane, and then it's got this, the cytoplasm, which is this sort of jelly-like stuff inside it, and then you've got the nucleus, and in the plasma, in the cytoplasm, cyto being cell, plasm being the plasma inside the cell, you have all these important things that I don't know what all of them do, but things like mitochondria, which make energy for the cell, and Golgi bodies, which I think have something to do with DNA, and what is it, ribosomes. See, I remember these things from biology when I was in sixth form. And so there's all these things inside the cell, and they're floating around in the cytoplasm, but the membrane of the cell is the cell's brain. It gets the signals from the external environment, which in our bodies is our bloodstream. Most of the time, in the brain, it's obviously not. It's cerebrospinal fluid that's in the brain. But the cell gets information from whatever is outside of it, and that information enters the cell or doesn't, depending on whether it activates or is received by receptors on the outside of the cell. So last week we talked about that, and we talked about the fact that in the context of thinking and feeling, because when you think a thought, you make chemicals which give you a feeling in your body, and feeling and thinking, because when you have feelings in your body, you tend to think more of the same kind of thoughts that go with that feeling, and this just goes round and round and round, and it reinforces itself. If you keep thinking and feeling and feeling and thinking the same way for a long, long time, or even over a very short period of time, if the stimulus is strong enough, what's on the outside of your cells changes, and it adapts to the fact that you might constantly be a happy person, and then your cells actually on the outside, what's on the outside changes because you're a constantly happy person. If you're a constantly sad person, you've got different kind of communities, if you like, or different amounts, different splits, like, a pie graph. If you imagine a pie that's cut into different pieces, the different pieces of the pie are not only different sizes, but they're different things. They're completely different things. So the cell can express different quantities of different kinds of receptors on the outside of its surface, depending on what's constantly going on the outside of the cell, and the environment that the cell is in. And that's what I wrote about last week. So I've got to give you a bit of context. So this week, because I'm getting closer to a simple explanation of emotional addiction. Believe it or not, if you don't know about that concept, we can be addicted to our emotions. And I mean our bad emotions. We can be addicted to good emotions, but more often, because people don't understand this and so they don't know how to change it, we can be addicted to our bad emotions. The emotions we don't want to feel, we can be absolutely addicted to them. And I want to explain that. And I don't mean addicted by, I really want to feel this way. I mean that biologically and neurologically and chemically and in every way, our bodies and our brains become dependent on us feeling like shit. That's what I want to explain. So I want to explain that, but the first piece of that is, well, why does it seem to be so much easier to feel bad than to feel good? And that is the first question that I wanted to answer. And how do I talk about this? You know the situation where you're just going through your life and you're having a decent day, whatever's going on, you're feeling fine. And then something happens and it really gets to you, and it can be only really like some small thing that you think, and your mood changes, and 3 hours later you're still ticked off. And you don't know why, and you think, for crying out loud, get over it. But you can't. And what's going on there, and why is it so much easier to feel pissed off about that thing that you know is really small and insignificant than it is to go back to feeling good, how you were before you noticed that thing that upset you? So I was trying to think, well, because that's part of the thing. It's not the only thing, but what's the deal with why is it so easy to feel bad? Because, I was the professional at feeling bad, and I didn't know it, and I didn't know why. So if you think about our brains and our bodies, they've been evolving for millions of years. Millions and millions of years. And by and large, they have been evolving in a situation where you need to eat, you need to drink, you need to have a safe place to be, and you need to procreate so that the species can survive. That is, biologically and neurologically, the baseline bottom line program that we it's back. All right, I'm going to do part 2 because I got just cut off in the middle and couldn't reconnect. And so I hope that we will just carry on, and I'll glue these things together later and put them on YouTube, which is what I do. So I'll just close my laptop because I was about to try to go live on my laptop, and then I thought I'm going to try one more time. So now that we're back, this is part 2. And I was just talking about, what the hell was I talking about? I was talking about how bad feelings hang around, and they need to hang around because if you're under threat, you've got to stay amped. You've got to stay in defense mode. You've got to stay able to fight. You've got to do whatever you have to do in order to survive. But good feelings, while that they reinforce, hey, you've had a child. That's great. And we need to have children because if we don't have children, the human species will not survive. The species is wired for survival. And I know I was talking about that. Over millions and millions of years, the human organism, the body, the brain, the container that we live in has evolved for us to survive in a really scary, wild environment where there are predators and you've got to find food and you've got to find water and you've got to have a safe place to be. And if you don't, you die, right? So you need those negative feelings in order to survive. The positive feelings are great because they reinforce for us things that are good for the survival of the species. Finding food, finding water, having shelter, having a space to call your own, having the things that you need in order to stay warm and, hunt for food and whatever. All of those things contribute to survival of the species, so they're important to us and we will fight for them or we will run away from things that threaten them or whatever. But when we have those things, we feel good because it's good for our survival to have those things. However, the good feelings go a lot more easily than the bad feelings, right? And if you think about it, bad feelings are helpful because they help us to survive. But if you're feeling so good, and I actually wrote this, and I like this line, if you're feeling so good that you hug the big cat as it's eating you, that's not a good way to survive. You need to feel bad when something bad is happening so that you can overcome it. And good feelings help us remember everything about the good experience and it remembers what we learned and because feelings help us remember. They literally help us make the neurological connections in our brains to remember the experience. Feelings help us remember stuff. I spoke about that a couple of weeks ago. So when you have a really strongly good feeling about something, you remember it and you remember, oh, I did this and this and this and this is how it happened. And so I'll try to do that again because we like how that feels. And the same with a bad feeling. It helps you remember everything that you did that helped you to survive. It helps you to remember everything you shouldn't ever do again. It helps us remember things that are important. Now, what did I write? I wrote some notes. So yeah, millions of years we've been wired like this. Only for the last few thousand years have humans come out of the wild and started, having agriculture and building houses and having it be so that the majority of us, and there are still people who live like that. There are indigenous tribes who live in exactly that kind of way of being. But most people, most humans now, don't face those kinds of things every day. But we are still wired for it. That's the point I'm making. Just because we live in some kind of permanent dwelling and we're not starving and we're not thirsty and we don't have to run away from big beasts that could hurt us, doesn't mean our body and brain still isn't wired like that. By default. I'm not saying that's who we are. I'm just saying that's how it works. And this is one of the reasons why bad feelings are easier to feel than good ones, because it's about survival, and survival is the priority. So you can have the situation where you're going through your day and you're feeling good, and then some tiny small thing comes along, and for whatever reason, and this is the thing that most of us aren't conscious of, we feel bad after that tiny thing comes along. You think, why am I still feeling crappy about this 3 hours later? Come on, get over it. But we can't. It's because something in our brain has made a connection. It's recognized a threat. And that's what set us off in the first place. And it might be a very small thing to our conscious mind, but to our subconscious or unconscious mind, we've recognized a threat. And so off we go into survival. And that it can be very unconscious. You think, why am I feeling so awful? And still, but this is part of the reason. We needed those survival feelings to keep us alive. Now, what else did I write down here? Oh yes, I needed to explain the detour that I took. And today I thought, oh my God, what am I going to have to write about? Because I was trying to frame this thing up simply, and I wanted to talk about the fact that, the feelings hang around, the bad feelings hang around rather than the good ones, because the chemistry persists in our bodies. And I started researching that, and I wanted to come up with a table that says, well, here are the survival chemicals and here are the creation chemicals, and you can see that all the survival chemicals hang around for a long time and all the creation chemicals don't. And there is a degree of that's true. But I don't understand enough about the neurochemistry. Hi, lovely people. I'm glad you found me again. Facebook did a big blip, or something did a big blip. Might not have been Facebook. And I couldn't get on for 5 minutes. But I've decided to just carry on. So what I did do is, hi, Augusta. It's yay! So I went and looked up like the stress hormones, okay? You've got epinephrine and norepinephrine, which other people know as adrenaline and noradrenaline. And they are the ones that, when you go into fight or flight, when you have to run away from a tiger, that's what gives you the strength and the energy and the power to do that. Just boom, this massive rush of energy to the body. Brain goes into instinct only. Your thinking brain is just gone when that happens. You've got all the energy being diverted to your heart, to your lungs, to musculoskeletal systems for running and fighting and hiding, and that's it. You've got no brain to think, no logic. That's why you can't think under stress. Just brain. There's no blood in the thinking part of the brain to make it work. You've got instinct. That's it. And then you have cortisol, which is the other stress hormone, and that sticks around in the body for quite some time. It can be minutes to hours, even, and if you keep it going, it can just go on forever. And that one is God. I worked it out, because I was looking it up and thinking, what does that one do? And again, it's about, like, if you have to run for a long period of time, if you have to endure difficulty in order to survive, cortisol helps you do that. But it does it at the expense of your immune system and your digestion and your thinking and anything. It's just, we got to sit and keep this body alive. So, the epinephrine and the norepinephrine stick around in your body for about 2.5 minutes. It's the half-life, I beg your pardon. There's some left there, but half-life of 2.5 minutes. And the half-life of cortisol, I think it was, I can't remember if it was 40 minutes or much longer, but it's a longer period of time. It hangs around. It's a half-life, right? So whatever dose you get, whatever your body squirts out into your bloodstream, half of it's gone by that period of time. You've eliminated it, neutralized it, whatever. So those things comparatively long-lived, whereas if you look at dopamine, for example, which is both a neurotransmitter and a hormone, I found that out this morning, in the brain, that is like milliseconds. It's really fast because it is a neurotransmitter. It doesn't hang around for long, but it actually acts all through the body in all kinds of ways. And it just got really complicated. I thought, I can't explain this. I don't know how long it takes, in terms of all its actions in the body. And you look at serotonin, right? Serotonin is the thing that the antidepressants, they make more serotonin stick around in the brain. And there's this whole theory about how that helps you feel better. But there's just as much theory that says that it really doesn't work very much. And when you have an antidepressant and a placebo in research studies, and this has been done many times, you get the same number of people feeling better taking the placebo as they do taking the antidepressant. So who knows, But the thing about serotonin is in the brain, it doesn't stick around for very long at all. But the thing is that 95% of the body's serotonin is in your gut. And in your gut and in the lymph system, there's a lot of serotonin. And there, it's hours, even days, and it's different actions. It just got really complicated. And I thought, I can't explain this. I'll just be talking horse shit because I don't know enough to be able to simplify it. So I started building this table and explaining all this. And I thought, no, and I had to hit delete. It's like, oh shit, what am I going to tell everybody? But I eventually pulled it together. In fact, my husband came home from something he was doing and stopped me and gave me this hug until I sort of, I wasn't getting wound up, but I could feel myself wanting to get wound up. So, my own stress response was going off at the thought of not having anything to tell you. I mean, really. And I thought, calm down, it'll come together. And of course it did. And I, the little pieces, they came together. But that was the big detour. And I learned some things, So the feel-good hormones and neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, the love chemical, that hangs around for quite a while. And the other, endorphins, those things that people go for a long run or you exercise really hard, you get endorphins. They give you a high, the body's natural opioid. They hang around too. But I was thinking about it and thinking, well, yeah, sure, but what's this got to do with survival and why is it so much easier to feel good feelings than bad ones? And that was when I sort of came to the thought of, well, yeah, if you're feeling so good that the tiger can eat you and you're just laughing, you're not going to survive. And so the good feelings go away real fast. All we need is something to trigger a survival response and they're gone. They're just washed out of our system. And it is true that you can be feeling really bad and then you can get some good news and it can all change. But it has to be really, really good news, So we are wired for these, and genetically and biologically and everything programmed for survival. And that is really, it sounds so simple, but that is why it's so easy for us to feel bad. It has its function if you're living in the wild. Because there's danger out there. And you can only get to feel good when you know that you're safe, when you know that your tribe is safe and you have enough food and you have enough water and, you're out of the weather. And then you get to feel good because now you're safe. Everything's taken care of. And the nice thing is that at the end of my writing today, I actually finished that little section and got to start. I'm finally going to start explaining my version, if you like, my understanding of emotional addiction. I finally got there of how is it that we actually get addicted to these bad emotions. Because, and this is just what I started to write before I saw, it's 12 o'clock, I've got to stop, I've got to set up, because it takes me a little time to set this up, is that whenever we get a survival response, the epinephrine and the norepinephrine and even the cortisol, they give the body a burst of energy, especially the epinephrine and norepinephrine. It's a rush. It is a chemical rush. And you know what that's like. Whether you're really excited and you're going for something, or, that moment when your gut churns and you're like, I've got to react, I've got to do something. It is a chemical rush and it wakes the body up. It wakes the brain up, not to think, but to react. And the thing is that, just like I said at the beginning, if you keep on having those chemical rushes, because people do, apparently, and I haven't looked at the research, but, we hear often, and I have heard often, that people spend the majority of their time in stress. And so if you think about what's happening in your bloodstream into your cells, and there's all these stress hormones there 70 or 80% of the time of your day, that's going to change what's happening on the outside of your cells. The brains of your cells, the membranes, are going to become accustomed to high levels of stress hormones. And so what happens is It's just like you know, when somebody takes in a drug, and it's like, wow, that's amazing. And then what happens is the same thing. The receptors on the cells become less and less sensitized. They get deadened. And then it takes a bigger hit for them to feel the same rush. And with us and our fear or anxiety or our anger or our sorrow or whatever it is, it's the same thing that happens. We become chemically dependent upon the very experience we want to stop happening. Our cells become accustomed to it. And so when you want to feel something different, it's fine until suddenly you think, or rather you don't think anything, but your body says, hang on, where is my chemical fix? I'm expecting this. I need these chemicals in order to work in the way that you really have programmed me to run. And you want to change that chemical instruction now? So this is the piece that I'm going to start to explain, my understanding of it, and the fact that the cells then start to talk back to us and they start to send really nasty signals to the brain. And I've had this happen many times. I'm just going along, minding my business, and suddenly, boom, really ugly thought. And I watch my body as it tries to respond to it to get its fix of, oh my God, how awful. That is often the kind of thought that just appears in my brain from nowhere. My body wants a fix of horror. Really? That's the truth. So this is how it works. I'm sure I've raved for long enough. I'm going to have to take these 2 videos and put them together, tidy them up. But thank you for joining with me. Thank you for persisting with me. It's been an interrupted broadcast, but, we just roll with that. I'm so grateful for the internet. It allows me to connect with you and share this story. And I really appreciate you sharing the journey with me. And if you're on YouTube, I do invite you to like, to share, to subscribe. This journey will be continuing. I'll be writing this website for a while, and then I'll be starting to make exercises and getting my husband to draw pictures, because there's got to be pictures. And it's going to come together and it'll be exciting. And if you would like to check out the ongoing story on Patreon, that would be cool, because there are special things that my patrons get to enjoy that I create just for them. And they're going to be the people who will try the exercises and see what's going on first. So thank you for sharing with me. I look forward to catching up with you next week. And until then, much love. Bye-bye.